in his philosophies, but he is an expert of the secret societies. So we're going to be talking quite a bit, for a bit tonight, about secret societies. How secret are they? That they're secret, and how do we know about them? So we're going to welcome him as soon as we know that he's on the line and say hello to him.
He's on the air?
He is. He's on the air. All right. Alan Watts. Hello, Alan.
How are you?
Okay, very good. It's been a while since I had you on, and welcome back in this new year.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be back on.
Thank you very much, Alan. Why don't you just give our listeners, for those newers and newbies, as they say, a little bit of a thumbnail sketch about your area of expertise and why you have been attracted to this field.
Okay, I think really my area is partially history and ancient history and the societies which ruled in ancient times, because there's nothing new in the system really except technology. And how secret societies have always dominated countries, and how it came into being with commerce and trade and money all together, really. And how it's never really let go, and how the same families intermarry down through thousands of years. They keep control of power because they marry each other who hold the money in all its forms, in land as well, and they've never let go. Plus, they employ all the think tanks that are constantly looking to the future to maintain control over society, and they plan the future. They plan where we're going. People don't realize that as you live your life, things aren't just happening by happenstance. Everything that happens on a major scale in the world is planned in advance by think tanks and strategists. And it's the old saying, if you don't plan your life, then somebody else is going to do it for you. And they certainly do, yeah.
Yeah, they're willing to step forward, aren't they? Huh?
They are willing to, yeah.
I know that you, on a social level, have been more probably libertarian than anything else, spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, I don't go into any category. I don't let myself be pigeonholed, because I find the pigeonholes are ready-made, like prefabricated houses, by the elite themselves. They expect us to go into one of the, after debate, something that fascinates us, and go into a pigeonhole, because we're very safe there once we're in. And they have leaders for all the groups of pigeonholes, and that's how they control society. They use Kaballah, for instance. Every country has a form of the same thing. To do with
all right. We'll talk about that when we come back. Stay where you are, Alan Watts, and we'll invite people to join us tonight at 1-800-313-9443. Have a question for Alan Watts on anything that we'll be discussing. I'm Rick Adams, Radio Avenger, the Paul Revere of Talk Radio, sounding the alarm. We shall return.
The New World Order thought police are on the run because Rick Adams is back on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
And we are on with Alan Watts. And Alan, you were just making a statement. We had to cut you off there in the middle about your foundation of your thought. But please continue to tell us exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, the Kaballah is taken from much, much older religion, you might say. And it's to do with observation of nature. Under all the esoteric talk, etc., for those who are higher up, they understand it's to do with human nature and the control of it. And if you can control, we know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If I push someone, they push back. And that's how society ends up being controlled. They're split into camps. I like this, I don't like that, therefore we're opposed. Well, if you can control them like nature, like summer versus winter, that's what they mean by that, then you supply the leaders for them, implement the right strategy, and you'll have your two opposing factions which you guide to your conclusion. This is how it's always worked.
So it really is a matter of cutting through the matrix.
It is,
Yeah, and it is a dialectic
Definitely.
model.
Yeah.
And, as you point out, throughout our years in American history here, since I've been around, I can see more clearly now than ever before in my life as to just how controlled we are, and we are not as a people even slightly aware of it. I like to use the example of how you can, gauge people, and you can make them do what you want them to do just by doing some simple basic things. If you walk down the street, for instance, and you stare up into the sky for the longest time, pretty soon you'll have everybody staring up in the sky.
Yeah.
And people will be wondering, what is he staring at? You will have a curiosity factor. You'll have people doing as you're doing, thinking there's something to it, when all the while you're just doing it to see the reaction.
Yes.
That's what they do, these powerful elite, isn't it?
Always. I was interested during the Y2K debacle that was promoted by the media, solely by the media.
Yeah.
That they did interviews all over the world to the man in the streets, and they asked him, and it was interesting the way they asked him this question. They said, "Do you believe in Y2K?" That's what they said in every country. Mm-hmm. Do you believe in Y2K? And I knew immediately it was a con. And I'm sure they were doing studies on the human nature during that whole fake crisis.
Right. To
see if they'd panic or not,
Now, you personally, you came from England, didn't you?
From Scotland, yeah.
Scotland, rather, I'm sorry. And you, as far as your background and you've been around for some time, I guess. I'm not trying to betray your age, but you were active in the 1930s. I guess you were of military age.
That's a different one. That's a different.
Oh, that's your father?
It's a distant relative, yeah.
Oh, okay. But you yourself followed in the same mold, I would imagine, when you have noticed the control of war, for instance. A good example is World War II.
Well, it's not just the control of it; it's the prediction of it by those who work for the governments. Right. H.G. Wells wrote about the coming wars with Germany before even World War I.
Yes.
And interestingly, H.G. Wells also talked about the Third World War to be kicked off in the Middle East at a place called Basra. Now, Basra is a place in Iraq that the British troops went into this last time.
Yes.
So these guys are in the know. Yeah.
Yes, and I started off the introduction by asking a simple question, and that is, I'm sure you get asked this question all the time, and that is that if these secret societies are secret, how do we know? How is it that we know so much about them?
They always, like Albert Pike, who really wrote the Bible on Freemasonry in the 1800s, he said that the lower Masons or the outer portico, they must bring members in, and those members who get a lot of side benefits, including reduced taxes and so on for property assessments. I've seen it happen to people, they take a lot of freebies. Well, they maintain the system for them, for the bigger boys above them. So they're very useful at the bottom for maintaining the system and swearing loyalty to the system. But there's the ones much higher. There's the noble orders. And we see the Kissingers. Giuliano went over there after 9/11 and got knighted as well, and Kissinger.
Giuliano, yeah.
So why are all the American top guys going over to get knighted by the Queen of England? It's more than just a title they're getting. They're getting initiated into a higher level of the noble Freemasonry.
You've mentioned various assassinations. You've talked about them. I'm sure you have been asked about them. What was your take on the JFK assassination?
Well, there is no doubt, just from an occultic standpoint, the trouble they went to make it all match up to the killing of the king, as they call it, with the head the brain being exposed to the sun, driving into the sun, and the Dealey Plaza, which was a triangle. Well, it was really a three-pronged triangle, like the trident of the old sea god. And behind that was a building shaped like a pyramid, and behind that was the courthouse with the dragon on top. Highly occultic. They always have the three Jewes, they call them, like the Jack the Ripper had the Jewes. That's Jubilo, Jubilum, and so on, of Freemasonry. That's not Jews. It's the unworthy craftsmen. So you had the transients coming off the train, who just happened to be there, always mentioned. never did anything, but they were the three unworthy craftsmen. And then the same thing with 9/11. You had three on top of a tower taking photographs of the 9/11 planes. They mentioned them, and they said Jews, but they actually meant Jews, the three unworthy craftsmen. That's the MO of a deliberate setup.
Uh-huh.
And you find that with Jack the Ripper, too, where it was written on the wall, and it's now been admitted by Scotland Yard that it was carried out by high Freemasons, the murders. The JFK is a whole program in itself because, you mentioned the captains and you mentioned the kings, and Taylor Caldwell wrote the basis for that miniseries, The Captains and the Kings, about the Kennedys. Yeah.
And, that was in itself quite a fascinating journey to look at their tree there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell people, too, who are Catholics, don't think. I mean, you see, people follow someone that they think belongs to them at the top of the tribe. And we're always given our leaders. However, Kennedy himself, JFK, I think had some humanitarian streaks in him somewhere, because he did make speeches on exposing the secret societies that was running the government. And I think that's really, that put that sealed his fate for him, because he did give an interview on that subject. But
Kennedy himself was never let in?
I think they were in on it. They were when you're raised in those families, you're expected to be a shepherd to the people who relate to you as a Protestant, Catholic, or whatever.
Yes.
It's the same with the Rothschilds. They lead a lot of Jews, and yet the Rothschilds probably are more Egyptian than Jews, and probably not Jewish at all, if you go into their history.
It all depends, I guess, on how you define Jews. That's a controversy in itself.
Yeah, but the thing is always to get herds created, human herds, and then supply them with the leaders. Yeah. And since in this system we do not respect poverty, but we adore and almost worship success, financial success, well, it's easy for them to give us the leaders. And they can lead us in circles forever and have us fighting each other forever, too.
Well, now, that's a very interesting point because, you mentioned Albert Pike, and I do remember having read Mr. Osborne's book, Richard T. Osborne, The Coming of World War III, which I'm sure you have seen many years ago.
Yep.
It was in the 1970s. And there were some things in there, of course, which didn't happen as he had predicted they would. But in any event, it was interesting to follow the people like Pike.
Oh, absolutely. These guys understood human nature perfectly, and how to get oppositions occurring, how to create oppositions, how to get the dialectical process in motion, because one power on its own trying to force something through will be seen by everybody as totalitarian. So what you must do is get an opposing force and supply the leaders. It's much easier to get 10,000 people, to convince 10,000 people to join a group, put in your own man at the top, than it is to directly relate to every single person of those 10,000.
Is there, though, in your view, one big interconnected conspiracy?
Yes, there is, no country can stay out of this agenda. If they try and stay out, they get bombed into it. And we saw that with Yugoslavia, and now we're seeing it with the Middle East, the last countries to be brought in.
Exactly, on that I agree. Iran and Iraq was a classic example. And they refer to the Babylon, the new Babylon in Iraq, which I'm sure you've heard about.
Yep.
You've heard about the building of this new Babylon, the Babylonian city?
Yes.
By the United States military. It's top secret, but it has been exposed and it has been revealed, and Mr. Bush says that we're going to have to send more troops now into this cauldron rather than reversing them. So obviously here there is no logic from an Americanist point of view as to what's happening, but there is a logic from a conspiratorial point of view.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When it's admitted now that H.G. Wells did work for the British government, the Secret Service.
Yeah.
And they still do this today with movie makers and so on. But in those days, it was all authors they would hire, train, and they'd say, we want you to write a story around these particular thoughts and make it exciting. Well, H.G. Wells did talk about going into Iraq in the Third World War, and the air police that was to dominate the planet by basically gassing the public,
Yes.
would be based in Iraq. That would be the permanent base, yeah.
Indeed. Stay where you are. We've got people lined up all ready to talk. George and Henry and others. 1-800-313-9443. Alan Watts, our guest, and we're talking about the Matrix, secret societies. Rick Adams. We'll be right back with more H.G. Wells.
Become the masters, and the Eloi their servants. The Morlocks maintained them and bred them like cattle.
All right. I couldn't resist that.
That's good. That's good.
H.G. Wells and the Time Machine. And, you know, I have to say that is my all-time favorite film. Because I would like to get into that time machine and get the heck out of here.
I know, yeah.
And, you know, David Duncan wrote the screenplay, but they made it more of a science fiction film. But, you know, the real meaning there was the class society that he was writing about, you know, that Wells was writing about, the upper class, the lower class, and so forth. And, you know, the whole idea of getting to travel in time is a wonderful concept. Winding up in the year 800 in 2007-01, but you know, that is the kind of level that you can look at things on. There are two or more levels, maybe many levels in the Matrix that you can look at something at, and I try to look at it from as many points of view as I can, knowing full well there are more meanings to something than the meaning that's being perhaps projected, right?
Always. Yeah. Sometimes in the speeches it's given out by presidents and prime ministers, they do give a lot out. If you understand some of the phrases they use, they won't explain and go the whole way with the explanation, but they'll give out phrases in Masonic terms all the time. And it's for those in the know.
Let me ask you before we take calls, 800-313-9443, about Gerald Ford, who's just been buried now. You know about his connections, obviously, his service in the New World Order. Was he just a useful tool, or was he more than that, in your opinion?
I think they're all more than that. These guys always have their backup men, too, in case they change plans, so that backup men to step in, and they must be completely reliable, especially if there's nefarious goings-on. They have to be completely reliable, and Ford certainly was.
In what way do you think he was reliable? What stands out in your view about his administration and things that were done?
It wasn't just the things that were done. It was the fact that, considering how he stepped into office, that he was never elected into any position. And you'll find that with some of the bigger players. They're never, ever elected into their positions. Those are the men that are really more important than the ones who are. Legally, in a sense, you see that they're not responsible to the public. There's a legality here involved, which they hold by. And Ford hushed up so much about one of the biggest killings, or at least the most widely seen killing on the planet. It was viewed everywhere, this Masonic killing of the king. And you certainly covered all of that up so well. That was what I mean. If he was a true president, an ordinary fellow that sort of ended up being there, the investigation would never have stopped. You know.
Look at the circumstances that brought him in. Richard Nixon himself was exited from office not because of the so-called Watergate scandal, really. That was a setup for him. But the reality is that Richard Nixon had been part of the double cross, I believe.
Yeah, and he was pardoned. He got on pardoned.
Right.
That's almost a royal ability to pardon somebody.
Yes.
When supposedly the crime was against the citizenry of the U.S. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take some calls, and we'll hang you over, ladies and gentlemen, or hold you over to the next half hour if we have to because of the break. And George from Illinois is our first caller. Hello, George.
Thanks for taking my call. Thank you, Rick. Thank you,
yes.
Alan. Alan, I really I appreciate all your work on just digging out the archaeology of sociology, religion, economics, and just pulling it all together so we can understand. I mean, what I'm wondering about, can you tell me a little bit about how the roots of Kaballah and its kind of magic faith, and the connection it has to Freemasonry? Because I think they're intertwined, but they kind of, do they evolve over time?
Yeah,
or is there a kind of connection?
There's always a connection, and the Kaballah was composed in different sections, really from the 1500s onwards, but it drew on much older, and a much older religion that ran the ancient Middle East. So they updated it basically and called it Kaballah. And the Kaballah, underneath all of the flowery language and the way it grabs your imagination and carries you off, is a very practical guide on human nature and how to control people, if you really understand it, both male and female and different age groups. And so it's all to do with control, but it's also to pre-program people towards a future event, which will be the microchipping of the human brain when we're all one.
One of the things I've noticed between those two, Kaballah and Freemasonry, is kind of they're both washed in blood. One of them seems like it's like a military hierarchy. It's a promise to serve, to obey.
Okay, hold that thought. Stay where you are, George, and Alan will be right back with you and our other callers. After the following break, in 3 minutes, we'll return. I'm Rick Adams, Radio Avenger, on Uncensored Radio Free America, right here on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
First step in winning the war, spreading the word. Tell your friends Rick Adams is on rbnlive.com.
Okay, we are back now, and George in Illinois is with us, raising the question, George, about the relationship between the Kaballah and the various secret societies that we're talking about. Continue, please.
Yeah, the Kaballah really came into being in a much more major way with the advent of Rosicrucianism in the 1500s.
Yes.
And Queen Elizabeth I's court was the first openly pre-Masonic court in the world, very open. Walter Raleigh, Francis Drake, all those around her, John Dee, Bacon, all these people were members of the same lodge, and they used Kaballah. And they wrote about how it was introduced to them. John Dee wrote extensively on it, in fact, under the guise of calling down spirits and different things. He gets coding. It's all coding. That's what it's all about. And codes, mathematical and cryptology to do with the language itself. So for the exoteric people, they get carried off with imaginative qualities of the Kaballah. It's very flowery language, which is typical of the old Middle East, you might say. They used to write stories in very flowery language to grab the imagination for the youth and carry them off into wild imaginings. But underneath it all, it's a very practical science of control. And of course, if you give your mind over to be controlled, even through reading, you're still being controlled by someone else.
To you, George?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's, Alan, you're right on. They still use it today with even the corporate logos, the colors. To me, it's a form of psychological terror. I think to bring it to today, would you say that Israel is closest to a system of control like the Holy Roman Empire was in terms of our time? Do you see that as a kind of a bringing the Kaballah and the Freemasonry forward and how that applies to today's lives?
What I see, really, is that those in charge of every country today, including Israel, are all high Freemasons. That's the one thing they all have in common. Very high noble orders, and they do intermarry and always have, regardless of what they claim is their creed or their faith. They've been intermarrying for centuries and centuries, and the higher levels, they don't have the same religion at all. Yeah.
It's not a matter of religion either, and it comes down to other factors that are involved. But you see the history, really since Cain, if you will, this lineage and this tribal warfare going on. There's a lot of infiltration that has to be taking place as well.
Yeah, through commerce too.
Infiltrate your enemy, don't you, to subdue it?
Yeah. You infiltrate, and you also bring commerce in, and then you monopolize all commerce, and then you introduce the money. And then you force, through the hiring of armies that use money, you can't keep an army together without money. Then you use that army from a conquered country to conquer the next country and make the same system reappear there. So this is an ongoing process done through millennia to standardize everything, and that's the key, is standardization.
Universalization, yes.
Yep.
George, thank you for your call, sir. Appreciate it very much. I have a friend who, his friend, years ago, he knew this man in a long time, but it was in the 1970s, this fellow, who was Catholic, I believe, went down to the South, and at the time, as you know, there was still quite a bit of overt bigotry against Catholics and so forth, and he got into some altercation with the Ku Klux Klan. And you know what he did? He showed his Masonic badge. And all of his problems ended.
Yes.
Doesn't that tell you something?
Well, Leon Trotsky, in his own book called My Life, talks about being escorted out of Russia by the NKVD at the time. They called it the Checkout. There was the police. And he said they went through all the border passings by giving Masonic signs. That's how they got through all 3 different countries. Yep. No questions asked. I
mean, and they set up these organizations to counter the other movements that they create as well.
That's right.
It's a typical dialectic, isn't it?
The guys at the top are all in on the same game. Yeah.
They control both sides.
Yep.
All right, let's take a call from Henry in Connecticut. Hello, Henry.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, Alan, I'm a former listener of even Jackie Betrue when she was on, and you and her on. You have a great show. Here's my question. You know a lot about this. And turn the radio on. You know a lot about this, and here's the thing that questions me. At least it appears to me this way. It seems to me, especially in this country, but even a lot around the world, but even in Europe, but mainly here, most of the people that are interested, I even listen to Jones when he talks about Bohemian Grove, and even before him, Cooper. It seems to be mostly of a particular age group. I'm not saying everyone, but the ones well over 50, or I should say well over 55, or maybe 60 and over, that seem to be mainly interested in this, universal mankind and, world stuff, and whether, like even American citizens, whether they be better behaved or held to higher moral or religious standards, or they want them to, embrace all cultures, and that whole movement of, now correct me if I'm wrong, because you know a lot about this. Are there many people, let's say, as compared to older people, let's say 40 and under, that are really involved with all this Rockefeller Masonic movement? Because I saw in the newspaper, and even though I know the newspapers are controlled, but there's some of them that are not. Little things slide through. It's like I said, not when the lies, but when they tell you the truth is what you should listen to, even if it's subtle. They're having a hard time trying to get people to join, where I was told by somebody older, very old, told me that originally it wasn't always that way. You didn't have to be related to Colin Powell or Bill Clinton. They would get a lot of people, like the people in the Shriners, for instance. If you look at them wearing the fuzz caps. And the ones who like all this growth, spiritual and religious growth for humanity crap. I mean, they say it in the books. I heard Cooper read a book talk about the purpose of all this control and this and that is for this evolution of mankind, and it's always either religious or principle or spiritually based. And is it more that it is more, is it that there is a problem, or is it there is a reduction of interest from people, let's say, under 40 or 40 and under, or under 45, a lot of this stuff?
You mean interest in being recruited and involved? Is that what you're saying?
Recruited and involved, and then what I mean, recruited and involved, or even belonging to, or even really caring about it. Like, for instance, an old man told me that when it came to this global stuff, and I even used to trick Masons on the phone. I mean, top Masons, I would trick them and give a certain sign that I learned from Cooper, and then they would spill the beans because they thought I was one. And it seems to be of a certain generation, much older, that really is into that, where I was told by this other person older on the street, it wasn't always that way. That back in it, to make it quick so I don't sound like I'm going all over the place, I'm trying to make this concise.
Yes.
In the 20s and the 30s, they would get people mostly off the street and maybe move them through the ranks to find out whether you could trust them or not, whether they spit on the cross and kiss Lucifer's ass or blah, 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 or whatever. Go through all that. Even in CFR right now, you can't be a permanent member of the CFR. I even called them and found out until you're 35. You're not even eligible.
So what is the question, Henry?
Right.
You're trying
so
to
what
ask?
I'm saying, is it that there's mostly older people interested in all this stuff with, humanity, or is it more likely to be suckered into that? And is there a decline of people younger interested in this stuff that really care about it? And I'm not talking people just on the take.
All right, let him respond. Then. Go ahead.
Yeah, what it is they always look to the future, the planners at the top.
Right.
And Masonry was a great tool. It was only in the early 1900s they started to let the ordinary working guy in. Even before that, they made a section for the middle classes to manage the rest of the workers in the 1800s.
Right. Even a master, because that's nothing.
It's nothing at all. No. See, they're much higher levels.
I know that. I'm saying even a master mason, they weren't allowed in. You weren't even allowed to be even into that level.
Yeah, that's right. If you're a working class man with no property. That didn't
be a blue mason. All right.
Yeah, and it wasn't until the late 1800s, early 1900s, you would get in as a working man. And I know this because I had a grandfather who was the master of a lodge, and he went through the ritual of denouncing masonry in front of the boys.
Right.
And it's right from the Talmud. You take your left shoe off and throw it down in front of them. That's your divorce. It's a ritual you go through. So,
right. But I find that most people my age and even younger, they're really not interested in a lot of that.
They don't have to be.
Am I wrong? Is there a rise of a lot of people?
Well, what you've seen is that they've given the new type, which is the New Age. The New Age is a new form of Freemasonry for another age. The whole New Age movement, the Wiccan movement, all of the different transcendental meditation stuff, that's all part of the new updated form for the future.
Right, okay, except for just one thing, though. I read some books, old grimoires, and there is an older form of Wicca, although there's a new form of Wicca that was kind of like a hoax by that guy Gardner.
Oh, yeah.
Not Richard Gardner, but another
Yeah,
Gardner.
the older, yeah.
Right. But here's the thing. I have found even with that, and even ones in their teens, where ones like Bob Dole and Clinton, they're really more like the force the masses to embrace all of humanity and all these different races and become multicultural, and it's important they behave and whatever. What I found with these ones that you're talking about with these younger, like pagan type things, it's very more or less self-centered. Also, it's not, they don't seem to want to belong to any particular, like...
But there's one mantra that goes through every single one of them, and they have 1,000 names, at least, of these groups. And that's we're all one, we will all become one, and that's the goal of it.
Exactly.
It's
the thing, I didn't hear that with some of them. And it also seems to be very cultural-oriented. Like, with these globalists, it's embracing all cultures, where I find the ones that are my age or even younger, down to 20s or 18s, they're more into strictly like the European, if they're European or white, they're strictly into like the older European type paganism only, not so much this stuff about embracing humanity or care about, Africa or China or this and that, where the ones that are older with Clinton and them are really involved with it, and Rockefeller, it's really more maybe I'm wrong. I mean, correct me.
You are in a sense, because everyone across the planet, under, as I say, 1,000 different names of meditation, even higher yoga, is all to do with the oneness of everyone on the planet. And I know people in Wicca and the higher levels of Wicca too, and they have the same degrees as Freemasonry, by the way.
Right, three degrees.
Yeah,
right, why is it though? Why is it that with the Wicca, are you talking like a specific branch of Wicca that they're trying to infiltrate and spread out to all the other? Because a lot of them just pick up their own books and sort of...
yeah, the thing is, you don't really get it. Those books all appeared on the shelves at once from 1,000 sources, and the Wiccans themselves just buy them up. I've asked lots of them, where do you get your information, your rites and rituals? All from the bookstore. It doesn't dawn on them that they're all authorized. All those books are authorized to be there, heavily financed and going very cheaply. Because that's the agenda.
Would you be afraid if these people learn real magic because they could fight these Luciferian people? Because if they, I do know a guy who was an occultist whose name was Val Tyre, and he had people come after him because he was giving the real magic. I mean, he had stuff like grimoire stuff, a lot of stuff that could take on anybody from Bush or Clinton, anybody in those top Masonic things, the people even in Bohemian Grove, real stuff that gives you the real power that people were killed for. Not letting, for letting people know about.
All right, well, we'll let him answer that, and we'll move on.
All right, I'll move
on.
A lot,
and I appreciate your good questions. Did you want to comment on that, Alan, on what he's just talking about?
Yeah, I don't think they're afraid of anybody, to be honest, at the higher levels.
Well, I think, we could go into a lot of philosophical issues here and scriptural and so forth, but you hit the key when you said that they want all things as one.
Yeah.
And that indeed is the goal, a one-world system. They want a classless, universalist society, nameless, faceless, where there is no competition.
And no individuality.
Freedom, right.
Yeah.
It's egalitarianism. Absolutely. Let's take Jim in Texas now. There's two Jims. First Jim is now. Hello, you're on the program with Alan.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to say that from what I know about conspiracies and the one-world government globalist vision, they want 10 regions in the world. The United States, Canada, and Mexico apparently will become one of the 10 regions because they're not stopping all of this 25 million illegals. They say there's 12. I said it's more like 25.
Yeah.
If you stop at 7-Elevens at noon, they're crawling with them, every one of them. Anyway, an ex-Jesuit priest named Malachi Martin, he wrote some books. He knew John Paul II personally, okay? He wrote some books, though, of course, he had to say that they were fiction. The only way he could get them published through the Catholic Church for them to condone it. But on the air, when he was doing interviews, when he was still alive, he claimed that there were parts of them that were not fiction, and that they were truthful. And one of the things he explained in one of them called The Keys to This Blood, which I read, was how the liberation theology that went from the Catholic Church to in the 60s and 70s into Central and South America and created all those wars, Nicaragua, Sandinistas, all that kind of stuff down in there. That is what's coming to America now, and that's what's behind. There was a meeting in 1989 with Gorbachev, Bush, First President Bush Sr., and Pope John Paul II in 1989, right around the time the Berlin Wall fell.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
All right. That was the kickoff for this mass illegal immigration that has influxed of the United States, as far as I'm concerned, the last 15 years now. And they made a conspiracy pact then to allow this to happen. And as you've seen, there's been no president since that time. Now, they didn't do it while Reagan was in there. He did give amnesty to the 3 million that were probably here, and actually that was probably a pretty correct number at that time during the 80s. He gave amnesty to that 3 million. But they couldn't get anything else past him. They waited for George Bush Sr. to come along, and they did get him because he was a member of the Klan, okay? So and every one of the presidents since has bought into it because none of them has stopped it. As a matter of fact, they've all looked the other way and said, come on, to whoever runs Mexico down there over the last 15 years. And I'm just saying that that's part of the apparent conspiracies that we see, not so much what's behind the scenes and going on with all these things.
Well, you alluded to the 10 regions.
Yeah.
Alan, did you have a comment about that number 10 because of the numerology?
Yeah. You find 10 everywhere. See, 10 is the binary code, and the binary code is the digital code for computers too, and the chip as well, which is coming. It's a language in itself. It's just all the 10 Sephiroth from the Kaballah.
All right, if you have another question, Jim, stay on the line. We'll be right back with Alan Watt and Secret Societies Cutting Through the Matrix. I'm Rick Adams. We'll return in 3 minutes.
Get back at him with Rick Adams, the Radio Avenger, on the Republic Broadcasting Network.
All right, we're back, and do we still have Jim, the first Jim, on the line?
Yeah.
You're here. Okay, Jim, what's your response to what Alan Watt has just said?
Well, I didn't hear it. He went to break. I didn't hear what he was saying.
Well, before the break, he responded to what you had said. All right, well if you haven't, do you have another question for me?
Well, I just have a little further comment, and I'll let you go. But I'm just thinking that Pope John Paul had, in years past, prior to his death, he always said how the American Catholics were a little too independent-minded for him.
Yeah.
Well, I guarantee you the ones flooding in here from Mexico are not independent-minded. They'll do anything and everything the Pope tells them to do. And if you get enough of them in here, that's the other part of the conspiracy. They can replace the ones that won't do it, and also take up the space of the true Christians that are here when they're tried.
Well, okay, let's explore that, Alan. What is your thought on that? Is there a consensus here within the migrating illegal aliens that are Catholic?
I think all groups. I think if you put yourself in a group, you've pretty well had it, because you're already been under mind control of some form or some higher leader. And they always give you leaders. Now, Karl Marx talked about the blending of the Americas back in the 1800s and Das Kapital. And he said there would be a united Europe under a single parliament. There would be a united Americas and a Pacific Rim conglomerate. And that was in the 1800s. Then Jacques Attali, who now is a head guy at the United Nations, and he was the Kissinger of Europe for France.
The trilateralism, yeah.
Yeah, he brought out a book called Millennium in 1990, and he went through the format of the massive immigration that would come in from the south of the U.S. into America, ending up with a blend of Spanish-speaking people at the bottom of the U.S. And he said there would be whole hordes would come in, and that was the agenda, that was the plan, and all those who belong to groups are being used to make it happen. And sure enough,
themselves as loyal to the Catholic hierarchy more so than American Catholics?
Well, let's be honest here. In this power structure, every religion has to be in on it at the top. They're all part of the same system at the top. Mm-hmm. And you need all the top leaders who control the vast herds. The shepherds control the herds, so the shepherds must all be in on the same game. It's only those who end up fighting each other that don't have a clue of the real purpose.
Have you noticed that the American Democrat left is going out of their way, starting just recently on their airwaves, supporting the Catholic Church?
Yeah.
And their people.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
That should tell us another facet of the picture here.
Huh.
Every group, as I say, is being manipulated, and willingly so, because once you've swallowed the whole thing for your particular group, the guy at the top who's so eloquent is going to do all your thinking for you.
Right.
You know,
pitting one group against another.
Always.
That's always been the strategy. Thank you, Jim, for your thought-provoking scenarios here. Let's see if we could sneak in another Jim in Texas first. Hello, Jim.
Yeah, am I on?
Yes, you're on now.
Hi, Rick. Good job. Hello. I've been listening to you for quite a while.
Thank you.
Listening to tonight's show, I find it kind of amazing that the people will discuss the minutia about the Freemasons or Adam Weishaupt, or they'll discuss the Illuminati or 10,000 different groups, which are all controlled by the same people.
Right.
And it all amounts to all of them, including the news media and everything else, of course, is they're all a bunch of Shabbos goy. So you can't take anything they say for a fact or anywhere near a fact. So I just, it's kind of amazing to me that people just keep talking and talking about all this stuff when it all boils down to the same thing. They control both sides of the argument.
That's right.
Both positions on any issue you want to imagine.
Sure.
Can you imagine Henry Ford knowing he'd be spinning into the grave like a DC motor.
Sure. You want to hang on for a minute?
Sure,
Jim?
I will.
All
Sure.
right, 1 minute break. Stay where you are. Alan, you can stay, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Alan Watt, my guest, and Secret Societies, Cutting Through the Matrix. We shall return hour number 2. Stay with us. Join us right here at the Republic Broadcasting Network. I'm Rick Adams.
The Radio Adventure gets even better. Live, uncensored, Radio Free America. Another exciting, informative hour is warming up. Rick Adams is on fire.
And we are on fire, and Jim is with us now to continue to put some gasoline on the fire. And Jim, you summarized, I think, where we are.
Yeah, there's not like little gasoline on a fire, because it's like you were discussing the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church since what do they call that 1962 when they made their accommodations with the Illuminati or whoever you want to.
Vatican II, you mean?
Yeah, Vatican II. Yeah, that's it. Right. Yeah, ever since they've been completely controlled by him. I suspect a long time before that, where they were mostly controlled by him.
Well, look at the first John Paul. What happened to him?
Yeah, well. He kind of pissed somebody off.
He bit the dust pretty fast, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I guess he wasn't willing to go along to get along, or get along to go along, or however you want to phrase it. But the thing is, these people control always, and they have for. I mean, it's been the same thing since Egypt. They've done the same thing in Egypt, and they've been doing the same thing over and over again. Every country they're in, every place they see is controlled. It's the same thing, the same plan. And it always works the same over and over again until they destroy the country.
My friend, their appointed role, the Kenites, as we call them.
I mean, it's like like the old scorpion and the frog. Why did you sting me? Because I'm a scorpion. That's why it's the same thing. Yeah. They have to follow the same plan, and it works always to an extent. And
well,
then
let me just state this for Alan to jump in here too. Okay.
All right.
Don't you feel that people themselves, even without all of the propaganda and the conditioning of the brain, don't you think people basically, for the most part, human nature is such that people like to be led?
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Alan?
I think that's true. What you've got is a science that understands human nature perfectly.
Yes.
And what you have is the perfect study of tribal instincts from any tribe. We all have the same instincts, you see. And if you understand those instincts, you can then exploit them. And knowingly, the people who will fall for your exploitation will retaliate in an appropriate way, which you predict, which you can always handle.
Yeah.
And so you guide the outcome into a different sphere, which they didn't expect. And this is a technique that's used down through the ages on people, going as far back as the beginning of commerce, and even the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians, you don't realize that they were standardizing the ancient world, even with their coinage. We still use the same weighings of gold and so on, and the carats and diamonds that were given by the Phoenicians, and even the Sumerians. Our clock comes from the Sumer.
Yeah.
So these characters who were into commerce and money was the key to take over from barter. Once barter was gone, then the person who controls the money was the boss.
Well, even with the coins, in the Roman days, they flipped the coins and debased them too. They melted them down.
Yeah. But they also could, even in those days, whoever dispensed the coinage, or the head of the realm, or the appointed front man of the realm, could decide how much it was worth even then.
Yeah.
And they were lending money out to countries in ancient times, bankrupting the countries, then moving their own men and system in to take over and manage the countries, creating the armies, and going off to conquer the next bunch. So unfortunately, money and commerce really is behind all of this. It's a mercantile system, mercantile laws. Yeah.
It is. Yes. Okay, Jim. Have another quick one or not?
Yeah, well, it all goes back to what first Rothschild said. Let me control the money, and I care not who makes the laws.
Who makes the rules?
That's it.
Yep.
You control the money, you control everything.
Yeah, and that's true because any economics course will tell you that the laws of any country must revolve around its economic system. So that is true. Whoever controls the economics controls the whole system.
If you wish to abolish that country and blur the lines and create a regional society, then you have to have a new currency. You have to have a new system, the euro, the Amero, and so on. All right, Jim, thank you. Stay tuned for more. Richard, Mike, Ann, and Nancy. Coming up for our guest, Alan Watt, will tell you how to get on his website and get his information. When we come back, I'm Rick Adams. Stay tuned. Our guest is Alan Watt, and Cutting Through the Matrix is what it's all about. And, Alan, people wish to visit your site to get materials, videos, and so forth. What's the best way they can do that, Alan Watt?
It's just cuttingthroughthematrix.com, and you'll see what I've got. I've got I don't know how many shows up now for free download, and different items for sale, CDs, videos. Yep. And books, yeah.
How many videos have you produced or made?
I've only put 2 out so far, and another one coming up very shortly.
And what will that be about? Can you tell us?
It'll be a combination of the history of what we're talking about right now, in fact. Okay. The moneyed system and the groups that go along with it, and the control of societies.
So when Jesus said, for the love of money, he wasn't talking. He was being very direct.
Well, you got to understand that even in the translations, they're often altered. And some of the Greek versions, they just say money is a problem, not the love of it. It's money itself.
The love of money is the key.
And
it isn't money, because money is not the problem. It's attitude.
Actually, I would slightly disagree there. I think money. Once you accept that money is a substitute for real wealth, which is the land you sit on or the food you grow or the food that you can barter, then you've got a third party involved between 2 people to barter. And the person with the money is a third person who eventually takes over. That's the key to that, too.
Yeah, but you see, that's true. But the money need not be the means to an end, I think, is what I'm trying to say. And in and of itself, money is a medium of exchange, but it does not have to be, really, when you come right down to it.
In an ideal system, that would be true. However, I think it's within humanity, the lust for power. Those who lust for power will always go after money. It doesn't matter what
brings power.
Yeah,
that's right.
So you always have corruption.
It doesn't always, because as you know, people win tremendous amounts of money in the lotteries, and then they're poor within a matter of months. They spent themselves right back into bankruptcy, and they have no power at that point. But those that are in the highest echelons of control of creating the money and the phony money, as I call it, the monetary system, not the money, like the Fed, are the ones who are the beneficiaries.
Yes, and so are all those who work or who are involved, the clerks, the chartered accountants, all these people. Rothschild mentioned it himself. He said only those who are working for money, with money itself, will make the riches. In other words, it's non-productive in itself.
Right.
But those who are working with money and pushing the pens, he said, will catch on to the scam. He called it a scam.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't expose it because they were benefiting from it so much.
Well, naturally, it was their scam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's take more calls now. Richard in Kentucky is next. Hello, Richard.
Yeah, hi there, Rick and Alan.
Yes.
I have a question for Alan.
Go ahead.
Okay. I've been basically studying the stuff about Freemasonry and the Zionists and everything since about the mid-1980s. And I'd like to say, that everything you're saying is dead on. It's absolutely right. I mean, the things they were saying back in the 80s about all this, they were predicting was going to happen to this country. It has happened. It has come to pass on a phenomenal level. What I'm just curious about, I noticed, the several times that I've listened to your show, Alan, you do spend a lot of time talking about the plans behind all this, the Masons, and the religious sentiment behind all this, which is all very true. I'm just curious why you don't emphasize a little more, though, especially for the average listener, the actual nuts and bolts of the matter, the actual things that have taken place, their plans that have come to pass, the actual provable things, the things the politicians are doing and saying, that actually prove, what has been going on for this last 100 years.
Well, I'll tell you right away. Most people today have no retention of memory. If they did, they wouldn't need me to point out what's been in the newspapers their whole lives.
Very true.
I kid you not. So why should I go over all the stuff that I gleaned from papers growing up and so on? Yeah. And they saw it at the same time, but they didn't retain. See, the people who can't retain things today, and people are losing their memory today, by the way.
Yes.
And I think it's a spraying that's going on.
Minds too.
Yeah, and
their minds, yeah.
So you can go. I could spend 10,000 lifetimes giving them the history of this, and it wouldn't make any difference to any action they will take, because most of them will take no action at all.
Right. What I kind of meant though is, basically the average Joe, the average person on the street, is basically, okay, he's getting a certain amount of information from the newspapers and the media, but that information, he's not really getting the real information of what's really going on. They're getting entertainment and, a few twisted stories that the Zionists and the media want them to hear, but in a lot of cases, they're not, getting the real news, what goes on in their own communities, what goes on a national level. That's just why I'm curious, is why that isn't brought out more, really, rather than the history of the movement, which, basically is just kind of people that already know, these things.
Yeah. Well, see, that's true. You don't even know what's happening in the next county half the time. Even it doesn't matter where you live.
Right.
But what you can be sure of is through the networking of the United Nations today, everything that's happening in your county on every level is happening in every other county on the planet at the same time. Because it's all coming from the UN and has been for the last 50 years. Even your building codes comes from the UN.
Right.
And it's signed into law.
In my own life.
Yeah. And so everything...
I used to live in New York City, and I moved to rural Kentucky, and I mean, the very same, practices that are going on a local level in New York are slowly filtering down here to Kentucky even.
That's right. And I've noticed as well, I watch some obituaries, and you'll see the people on school boards, whether it's male or female, and look at the lists of all the organizations they belong to. School boards, your local council boards, and so on, they're all Freemasonic, either male or female. I saw one recently where the woman belonged to 7 different lodges, and she was on every board in her little county. So this is standard. They know the system, and the Masons boast freely in their own publications that they brought in the education system, and they brought in the world's standardized educational system. There's a good reason for that, yeah.
Okay, Mike, you got another point, or would you like to move along now?
It's Richie. Yeah, I just want to say, basically, that is all true. But it's really these things, these nuts and bolts things that need to be pointed out more. What the school boards are doing, what they belong to, rather than the history of...
Yeah, and what I keep emphasizing...
100 years ago.
Yeah, what I keep emphasizing...
That's a valid point.
Yeah, what I keep emphasizing is, and people will not touch this, I've been lots of shows, I say, if you want to vote people into anything that gives power over you, you better demand the right to know what organizations they have already sworn allegiance to. And no one will touch that.
No.
Why not?
They won't.
Yeah, why?
They wouldn't dare touch it because they know they're touching the raw nerve of this system.
But it's the only way you're going to get through and get any answers, because you'll be shocked to find that everybody in every major position that's going to make a law that's going to affect you has already sworn an oath to a previous organization.
Yeah.
And
we're seeing that with the standardization of the voting from the federal government down to the local precinct. All about controlling the results.
Yes, and
about that.
Even the Police Chiefs Association is now the International Police Chiefs Association across the planet, and they all take their orders from the UN.
Well, after all, we've got to fight world terror now.
Yeah, and you have the International Mayors Association.
Sure.
It's on and on. Everything is already global. Yeah.
All for the good of mankind.
Thank
you, Mike, for your call.
Thank you.
But I want to put a little chink in the armor here for you, Alan. One good thing, you remember the big push in the 1980s, 70s, and 80s for bringing America into the metric system in every sense of it.
Yeah.
Well, that was rejected, by the American people. Didn't go over. I remember because I was in a radio station, and they wanted us to give the temperature, the Celsius and all of that.
Yeah.
What are you, crazy? We're not going to do it. We just gave Fahrenheit, and people didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear about the metric system. And that system really was not implemented fully as they intended.
Not fully.
There are examples of this, fighting back. You see what I'm saying?
I know, but here's another thing too. They knew that then, and long before it, they were going to make China the manufacturer for the planet, and therefore everything coming in is already metric. It's
metricized.
Yeah.
But as far as our end is concerned, we don't go in and say, give me 5 metric inches of this or that. You know, we're still thinking American, and that has to be broken down.
I know, because in Britain, they changed the standards overnight from pounds and ounces.
Sure.
And only recently a grocer was imprisoned in England for refusing to use the metric system. Imprisoned.
Is that right?
Huh? Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that's the most democratic country in the world, right? Yeah.
Remind me.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can say hello to Ann in New Mexico. Hello, Ann. Hi, Ann. You're on the program, Ann.
Hi, Rick.
Hi, I can hear you well.
Yeah, I just got plugged in.
Thank you.
Speaking of plugging in, Alan, you're spot on. Here's a little commentary, then a question. The way I see it, and I think we're on the same page, is the current C runs the machine, which is the one global computerized brain with the chipped hive masses plugged in.
Yeah.
And, of course, we are considered virus or free radical by the programmer.
Yep.
And, of course, in the corporate behemoth, because it's all corporatized.
Sure.
The bottom line is this current, which on the bottom it's paper, but on the top it's just you push a button. It's electric.
Yes, it is.
It's the current. Now, by the way, are you published?
Yeah.
A book?
Yeah, I've got 3 out, yeah.
Pardon?
I have 3 right now for sale, yeah.
Is it at Barnes & Noble?
No.
No, not there. I've been putting it myself.
On the website to get it in.
Oh, okay, which I will. Here's the question.
I'll tell you what, Ann, we have to break for commercials.
Okay.
Would you like to hang on, please?
Please.
Stay with us, Ann, and you can ask those questions of our guest, Alan Watt, as soon as we come back.
Thank you.
All right, let's take that break quickly. 3 minutes. Rick Adams, we'll be back. 800-313-9443 is the number. Not much room on the lines, so jump on quickly if you got a question for our guest. We'll be right back.
We've just been too busy setting up our businesses. We didn't pay enough attention to what was going on around us. We allowed a bunch of thieves and murderers to get control.
Okay, we're back now, and I'll get back to Mike in a minute. I guess I made a little bit of a boo-boo there, but Ann, you're with us now, and you wanted to raise a couple of questions for our guest, Alan. Go right ahead, Ann.
Yes, Alan, you nailed it on the contracting with the currency, which is what we're plugged into right now, versus bartering, and you're exposing it. I learned something from you tonight, that the bartering is one-on-one, but when we contract with the money, we're contracting with that third party.
Yes. Yeah. What they used to do at one time was to simply exchange what you needed for something you needed, and you see now we don't look on food as food or clothing as clothing. We work, and we're trained to work to get money to buy the clothing or buy the food.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it?
And then we have no control over the price or how much you're going to get or anything else.
Right.
And you can also hire the most corrupt people to work for you for money. You hire armies. An army won't stay together if it's not getting paid. It goes home.
Here's a question. That is just brilliant. What I learned from you tonight is thank you so much for that. But here's the question. Of course, Daniel 7 gives the answer spiritually, but I'm interested in what in your opinion, what could bring this age-old currency scam down?
Yeah.
What could bring it down? What, in your opinion, is the fatal flaw in this age-old currency scam? What could bring it down?
We're coming up to it, actually, because it's not just something that was to go on forever. Money is a tool of an elite. And we're going into the next step, which is a trick of the elect, or electric, you see.
Yes.
And you're going into a stage where Yeah,
the
chip. So money is...
How can you say, we would all have to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to be chipped?
Absolutely, and you'd also have to train the children who are already going for the idea through the cartoons, because the superheroes have chips in them. And in the movies too. So it's all programming, predictive programming, and we must be aware of it right now, because the money scam has to stop before we're all doomed. In the future, the elite see us all as being bred as servants, and they've written about this. They won't need to reward us with anything that we believe is a real reward. It's our belief in money that makes it work.
Yeah, you're right, and they want us to interface eventually with the computers.
Yes.
And, of course, Revelation tells us what to do, because Revelation has, I don't know if you have read Revelation, but it reveals to us, at least 2,000 years in advance, it has been revealing to us what's happening, what's going to happen, and what we should do about it, which is say no. But most people are going to go along with it.
You see that there's a high tradition here to do with, it also says there, in the New Testament it says, take no oath.
Right.
Swear no oath.
Now, people sign their name away all the time. When you sign something, that is an oath.
I know.
And you have a whole population in the world who are trained to do it right now.
Well, Alan, you are really, you're just spot on, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ann, for your
Yahweh bless you.
Amen.
Yahweh bless
you. Thank you, Ann. All right, let's get back to Mike in Texas. Hi, Mike. You're back again. Sorry about that.
Hello.
Yes, Mike.
Oh, hi, Rick.
Yes.
Really am appreciating the program tonight.
Thank you.
And, Alan, thank you for all the work that you've been doing on this topic. I guess I've kind of had a real motivation to, get in or poke at the Masonic Order. And it's come from just some revelation on the part of my own family. My grandfather, I found out just through looking at some of his old material, was a Mason. And he actually was awarded a 50-year award for having 50 years of membership. My grandfather is still alive. He's 101 years old. And so it really has been a fascinating thing for me. And I'm a Christian. I've got the Holy Ghost in me. I know I do. And I've been, trying to fight back on the New World Order for a number of years. And I guess that's kind of my question to put on the table is, I've seen on the web some different places Christian witnessing to Masons, and information on that, and some perspectives from what the writers were saying that they had been Masons and were going through the different allegiances and had a coming away, and just from their Christian convictions. And I think that's, so I wanted to get your perspective on that. And I've also, in looking at my grandfather's material, going through some boxes, I found a book called The Elders of Zion. And he had a lot of notes in there. And I actually asked him, or I brought up the subject of the Luciferian nature of the Masonic Order. And this was when he was about 98, 99 years old.
All right, Mike, if you want to continue and wrap up, then we'll just have you back right after the break, okay?
Okay, well, I appreciate that, Rick.
We got Nancy and Ryan and Michael and Rashid will be all next on the program. Stay with us, Rick Adams, Uncensored Radio, Free America, only on RBNLive.com.
Don't feel like the Lone Ranger. You've got the Radio Avenger on your side.
Hey, Rick Adams is on.
Hey, turn your horse radio on. Rick Adams is on. Ouch.
Back, and Mike, you're with us, and continue. You wanted to add something about what you discovered in your grandfather's literary repertoire?
Well, let me just kind of put the overall question on the table for y'all's comment.
All right.
I'm just, I'm interested in, putting Jesus on them. And there's some guys that I know are in the order. And, when I've talked about it to them, I've seen just evil coming out of them, as if it were demons.
Yes.
But I've got the Holy Ghost, and I will confront them with my eyes or with my words, and they will back away like a turtle's head going into its shell.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just been a fascinating thing for me to be poking at this thing. And so, I've found some material through my grandfather's little boxes, including the Masonic Bible. And then this Protocols for the Elders of Zion book, pamphlet.
Yeah.
And so I guess my overall question is, I don't know what's in the Masonic Bible versus King James or whatever other, New International Version, or just what is Alan's comments on, Christian witnessing and provocation in the name of Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost.
Well, what's your opinion on this, Alan? I know Alan's not a preacher. He's not here to preach or bring you a scriptural message per se, but he can comment on it.
Yes, but Rick, is it not a religious order?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. It all comes down to religion.
It's a religious order.
It really is a spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle.
Yes, absolutely, Mike. Yes.
And you have
Alan, did you want to comment quickly? Because we have to move along.
You have to realize that these guys have had intense indoctrination through their degrees, and you don't get them out of it by antagonizing them. You got to do it more subtly and quieter. And see, if you try to bring everyone out of lodge, it's not going to work. It gets an occasional individual here or there you talk quietly to. And you don't bombard them with everything that you know. You give them a little piece here and there, and they might start coming to you.
How many do you know of, or do you, that have done that, have come out?
I know some. I've got some myself that have come out 33rd degrees, yeah.
Very interesting. And now the order, the number goes much higher than 33.
That's why even in Fahrenheit and Celsius, they both meet at 40 degrees, because the higher secrets start at 40. That's why life begins at 40. That's why it begins at 40. You get the higher truths then, yeah.
Very interesting. Thank you, Mike, for your call. We have to take our next caller, who is Nancy, waiting from New York. Hello, Nancy. You're on with Alan Watt.
Hi, Rick. Hi, Alan.
Hello.
Yes.
I'm a new listener. This is the first time I've listened to this program.
Very good. I thought so. We have a lot of new listeners.
Came across the cuttingthroughthematrix.com because of the reality check video that was on YouTube.
Yes.
Watched that and found that interesting, and it led me to the website.
There you go, on YouTube, huh? All right.
And not only that, I just sent a check today for the Ancient Religion CDs. It's a great site. Not new to the ideas, but I think newer than some of your listeners. At any rate, here's my question is, given everything is controlled by a small group at the top, it's two questions. One is, what's the alternative? And the other is, what can I do? To make things okay for my kids and my grandkids.
Yeah.
Good questions.
And I think I'll just hang up and listen.
Very good.
Right.
Thank you, Nancy, for calling. Appreciate your first-time call. All right, Alan.
The first thing is what can be done, and it's true. The alternative is for the good side of human nature. We're talking ideal here, idealistically, but for the perfect side of human nature, which we have, to decide that this whole system is wrong. You can't save a system which is corrupt. You see, you can't do it. Now, if it was corrupt from the beginning, if the foundation was corrupt and built on blood, you can't save it either. Everything built on top is just more corruption.
That's exactly what I say, yes.
So you truly, this is a battle of free will, or the spirit as well, for survival of an alternate way and not the one that's been designed by the boys who are leading us at present. It would take a tremendous change in humanity to be human, all those little faculties that make us human with emotion, caring, loving, and so on, to come to the front. If that does not happen, it's doomsday. We have a choice. And it's the same thing with the children. You're up against a tremendous battle of indoctrination from television and magazines and peer pressure and so on, and the school system is all geared towards this as well. I really pity people with children right now because they have the hardest job of all, trying to pass on values, and these are true survival values for independent thought and thinking for the future. But it must be done, no matter how hard it is, it must be done, or it will be game over for those people. Those children will be strangers to you shortly if you don't. Yeah.
They're already being alienated from their parents. They don't even know who their parents are in many cases.
The parents, you see, Bertrand Russell was paid to have special experimental schools. This is Lord Bertrand Russell from Britain. And he wrote lots of books. One of them is called The Impact of Science on Society.
Sure.
One of the best ones to read is an earlier book on his experimentation with the schools. The British Crown gave him permission to do this. He was encouraging pre-pubertal sex with males and females in this school in Britain, where any other school, would have been closed for doing it. The Crown wanted to see what this experiment would show. And he said if we can get to encourage them to have pre-pubertal sex, actually, they'll never get married. They won't need a partner.
So like the Harrod experiment.
Yes. And he said if we can get those children at the age of 2 or 3 into kindergarten, universal daycare, he said our scientific indoctrination for 2 or 3 hours per day will guarantee that any moralistic input from the parents will be null and void. So they knew that back in the early 1900s, and we've watched it happen. It's happened.
All right, let's take some more calls. 1-800-313-9443. Ryan in Oregon is next. Hello, Ryan.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you guys? I have a question for Alan, and then maybe a real quick follow-up that leads from that question. Before that, though, I'd like to make an FYI type real quick comment.
Okay.
I've got a business associate and a very close friend that I've worked with for about 10 years now, who has a cousin who he's really close with that works at one of the central depository banks here in the United States. I won't say which one. I do know which one it is, but I don't want to, go there with that. My point that I wanted to pass on to everybody concerning the currency and their plans and all of their goals and everything is that this gentleman has physically seen and touched the notes that have already been printed and are already in storage at the central vaults for the Ameridollar.
Yeah.
They exist.
I think they've been printed in Canada, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've already distributed them to the, like I say, the depositories. And what he's been told is they anticipate the distribution of those notes somewhere between 2008 and 2010. So that's their agenda, at least what they're being told inside the central banks. So, anyway, my question, Alan, if I could, and this is kind of motivated from watching some of the eulogies that went on with Ford's funeral over the last couple of days. People like Bush Sr. and Carter and other gentlemen of that generation, it was almost palatable that you could see it in their eyes that they were literally wondering about, hey, where am I going to be? When's my turn?
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
It was really bizarre, and I don't know if I was the only one picking up.
No, you weren't.
So
you noticed George Bush Jr., the president, looked rather grim-faced.
Well,
looking down, his fate, his future,
Yeah, well, I hope the Holy Spirit shows him some things before he does die. But anyway, my question, Alan, deals with that. There's all of these gentlemen that are 1 or 2, and maybe in some cases 3 generations ahead of me. I'm 49. And I've noticed over the last couple of years, things seem to be just exponentially speeding up. on everything. It's almost you can't hardly catch your breath. My question is this directly. Do you see that as being part and parcel because of the this eldest generation sees that their time is coming to an end and they want to get these things done before they go, or is there something else motivating this? To be happening?
What it is, these guys, it's a long-term business plan. The world is a long-term business plan, and they make their meetings. They actually plan it centuries ahead. Every step of it, even the wars.
Indeed.
And what you're seeing is the culmination. 2010 is a high occultic year for them in the occult. Arthur C. Clarke, a high Mason, did 2001. That was to kick it off. So we had 9/11 happen in 2001. That was written in the 1960s, by the way. 2 big movies, 2 big books. 2010 was to follow it up with the creation of a world system.
The year we make contact.
Yes. That's right.
So you're saying that, Alan, you're saying that it isn't necessarily the fact that these gentlemen are reaching their end of days, but that this is already pre-planned.
It's pre-planned. That's right. And even during the NAFTA negotiations or the free trade negotiations, Shelley Ann Clark, that was the top civil servant in Ottawa, came out and tried to go public, and she did all the typing up for the books for the negotiations, and she said that the Americas under the free trade negotiation had been agreed to be merged at the year 2010.
Here we go again.
Yep.
Anyway, my real quick follow-up question, because I really want to hear your answer on this one. People like George Shultz, Zabrensky, Kissinger, those gentlemen, do you see those men as lieutenants that are being controlled by higher-ups even higher than them, or are they actually the kingpins, or where do they fit? And if they're not them, do we look to people like Clovenhoof or any of these, maybe even Benedict, or who are the people that actually are pulling the strings here?
All right, let him answer that, and listen off the air, Ryan, so we can move along. Very good. Thank you. Go ahead, Alan.
Okay. What they call Kissingers and these types, the high advisors, who come to presidents with the agenda. See, the presidents have less power than advisors. The advisors are trained for their position. The advisors work in unison across the globe, implementing the same agendas, writing the scripts for the presidents and prime ministers. And they're called the grey men. So the Kissingers in this system, in the occultic world, they call them the grey men who go between the chessboard, the white and the black squares. Now, the ones who behind the scenes are very, very old families. You can trace them through the nobility throughout Europe. They came in with the Norman invasion. And it's the same families interbred over and over. We have them, a lot of them in Canada, in fact, very big families, powerful families, but very quiet. And some of them are the only international private money lenders to whole nations living here in Canada. But you never see their names in the news.
Right. All right. As a matter of fact, we have a new caller, I believe, from Canada. I'm going to defer the other caller, Michael and Rashid, and keep you on the line for just a few moments so we can take this long-distance call from Canada. Linda, hello. You're on with our guest, Alan Watt.
Well, I'm astounded to actually get through this time.
Yes,
this is
I
the
know.
first time I've come to the radio station. I have a question for you about one of the earlier callers mentioned, or the topic got around to microchips, RFID, and I wondered if there is has been any indication that people have been chipped without their knowing it.
Yes, there is. In fact, it broke out in psychiatric studies in the 1960s with supposedly schizophrenia, of all things. Up until then, most schizophrenia manifested hallucinations in a religious form. And suddenly it was all to do with chips that were implanted in the back, in their head, and computers that were controlling them before the general public in Europe even heard of computers. This was a brand new phenomena. Pretty well all of these people had been in the military. They had minor operations whilst in the military, and it's come out since that they were being experimented upon with the early chips.
That's of great personal interest to me. I'm wondering if there is a way of, or a place where a person could go to get information or to be checked.
It would depend. Yeah, it would depend where it is. Number one. Also, if you've been chipped, and see in Canada and Britain, it was so easy to do because you have national healthcare systems where they can track you through your life and watch for symptoms and so on. So, but if you can prove that it's given you physical disturbances, that they'd have to check into it and remove it.
But where would I go? How would I do that?
You would have to have some evidence or some suspicion that you can put across to a GP, not a young one. You have to give it an older one.
Well, something very peculiar happened earlier this year. Well, last year now, January 14th, as a matter of fact. A mark appeared on my body, and it looked exactly like crosshairs, like a, you know.
Yeah.
And there were three peculiar marks on it.
Three marks. Was it an upper arm? No.
No, it was on my upper left breast, actually.
Okay, yeah, but the three little marks are common. Yeah, okay.
In the top quadrant. Quadrant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Now the crosshairs were exactly 90 degrees. It was a very, very concise mark. It was, and it appeared just as just a red mark, really.
Yeah.
But done so finely, as though it was done with a very fine pen. It lasted for about 3 weeks, and then it turned into a burn and peeled off and disappeared.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm almost.
Do you have a personal GP or doctor that you have already in the system?
I don't, but I went to someone here. I went to 3 people immediately, and all 3 of them saw it. Now, one is a naturopath, one's a nurse, and one's an environmental specialist.
Okay.
And I got no response. I mean, I got no information. Nobody had seen anything. Nobody knew how to check about it. So
you may or may not have it, though. You may not have the implant or the chip.
Yeah.
So
but the mark came from somewhere, and as I said, I'm almost 60 years old. I'm not.
Right.
I don't
you will have to do something to find
exactly
a person qualified to deal with it, a doctor who can deal with all of the tests necessary. That's what I would do, Linda.
Where do I find that? Like, what's the indicator for that? What's the name?
We'd have to go to an epidemiologist.
Epidemiologist.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Linda, thank you from Canada. We appreciate it. We'll be right back with Michael and Rashid. Stay with us. Alan Watt, our guest.
How dare you call yourselves patriots and heroes? If you say the government is in a conspiracy to take your freedom away, you are just plain wrong. There is no freedom.
Oh, my. Well, there it is, Alan, from the horse's mouth, right?
Yeah. Yep, that's it.
Mr. Clinton. All right, let's take our final call right now, and that is from, I believe it's Rashid in Washington, D.C. Is that right?
Yes.
Hi, Rashid. Welcome to the program.
All right, how are you doing?
Good.
Peace to everybody. Yeah, yes. I wanted to try to say something. I'm a first-time caller. I ain't never called much to anything.
That's
but I do like to listen to your show, and I mean, there's a lot of intelligence out there, and I appreciate Alan Watts and you too. I want to say, as 2,000 years ago, Jesus was fighting against this same thing, you know, and he tried to give us the knowledge so we can avoid this. But now we're into this 2,000 years later, and it seems like it's coming to a head. Okay, and it's all right. Just say that we are 97% of the people are under the rule of 3%, right?
Yes.
Seems like we know all of the secret societies and everything that's out there. Seems like the masses of the people, the good people that want to do right, should be able to unite some kind of way.
Yeah, and that's just it. They are so divided through many petty little things as well. But you have to also realize that even at the top, the evil that which they personificate really is also inherent in everyone. I mean, we all have the same abilities to be corrupt, evil, selfish, all the things which are doing us in right now. And that's what's against us. There's never been a time in history where a whole people have united and against something. You could stop the whole system tomorrow, even for a week, to get their attention by simply not going to work. But you'll never get everybody to do it, you see. And even, it's interesting, even if you had concentration camps, the repetition of concentration camps, which Britain was the first country to start up, by the way, in the Boer War.
That's right. That's right, in Africa.
Yeah, you will find that the way they present it to get the people into the camps, the families, they're taking you to safety. It's always the same story, that we're taking you to safety.
Peace and safety, Alan.
And you'll find that most of the women, see, the women are also divided. They follow what seems to be a strong leader who promises them freedom and safety. Ancient Nero said that. He says, we always aim propaganda at the female. Hitler said the same thing, because they want peace, safety, security. Well, the women would want to go in. There'd be a schism right away, and the men who were suspicious of it would probably go along with the women. This is what has happened before, you know.
All right, because we're running out of time. Go ahead, Rashid.
It seems like everything revolves around money, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the people that are hurting behind this, if they would unite, I mean, we could even we have enough knowledge to run the world, really. I mean, why do we have to be concerned with them?
I know.
Make a new money.
Make a complete new system if need be.
It's already being tried, and they're cracking down on that. The gold and Liberty Dollar and all of that. So this power elite is more powerful than we think. But as you point out, there is power in all of us to resist and to fight, and we're not doing it as a people. But Rashid, thank you for being a first-time caller, and call again, please.
All right.
All right, Alan Watt, the website is cuttingthroughthematrix.com. My goodness, what a great show tonight, Alan.
Yeah, it's been good.
Do it again. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, yeah.
And let me know the responses you get. You'll get many, I'm sure.
I will.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye now.
Okay, Alan. Bye-bye now. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. No more time. And Michael dropped off from New York, so we had a great program tonight on this Wednesday night.